My name is Ruby. I am 29 years old and I live in a quiet apartment in the city. The lights in the reception hall were too bright. The music had stopped, but my ears were still ringing. I sat at table 5, gripping the stem of my champagne glass so hard I thought it might snap in my hand. My mother stood at the front of the room. She held a microphone in one hand and a thick blue folder in the other. She looked happier than I had ever seen her. Next to her stood my sister, Vanessa, looking perfect in white. "We wanted to give the newlyweds something special," my mother announced, her voice booming over the speakers. "We are giving them the deed to our family home." The room exploded with applause. People stood up and cheered. Vanessa screamed with joy and buried her face in my father's chest. I didn't move. I couldn't breathe. For 5 years, I was the one who paid the mortgage on that house. Every single month, money left my bank account to keep a roof over their heads. I skipped vacations. I worked late nights. I saved them from losing everything. But nobody in this room knew that. They only saw generous parents and a lucky bride. They didn't see me at all. I looked at my mother's smiling face, and right then, something inside my chest finally broke. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Ruby. I am 29 years old. I learned how to be invisible when I was very young. It wasn't a magic trick. It was a survival skill. In my house, there was only enough spotlight for one person. That person was my younger sister, Vanessa. She was 2 years younger than me, but she took up all the space in every room. When Vanessa laughed, everyone stopped to listen. When Vanessa cried, the world had to stop spinning until she felt better. I was different. I was Ruby. My role was simple. I was the furniture. I was the sturdy table that held things up. I was the quiet rug that absorbed the spills. I remember a Tuesday night when I was 12 years old. I had come home from school with a high fever. My head felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. My throat was so sore I couldn't swallow water. I walked into the kitchen, dropping my heavy backpack on the floor with a loud thud. My mother was at the counter, frosting a cake. It was a chocolate cake, Vanessa's favorite. Vanessa had fallen during gym class and scraped her knee. It wasn't a bad scrape, just a little red, but she had been crying about it for 3 hours. "Mom," I rasped out. "I don't feel good." My mother didn't turn around. She was too busy making a sugar flour for the cake. "Not now, Ruby," she said, her voice stressed. "Vanessa is having a terrible day. Her knee is throbbing. I need to cheer her up. Be a good girl and go lie down." I stood there for a moment. I wanted to scream that I was burning up. I wanted her to put her hand on my forehead, but I knew the rules. Vanessa's scraped knee was a tragedy. My fever was an inconvenience, so I did what I always did. I went to my room. I got myself a glass of water. I found the thermometer in the bathroom cabinet. I took 2 aspirin. I put myself to bed. The next morning, I got myself up, made my own toast, and went to school. When I came home with an A on my history project, my father nodded and said, "That's good, Ruby. We expect that from you. You're the smart one." That was the trap. They called me low maintenance. They told their friends, "Ruby is so easy, she never needs anything, she's so independent." They said it like it was a compliment. But it didn't feel like a compliment. It felt like a dismissal. It meant they didn't have to worry about me. They didn't have to spend energy on me. They could pour every ounce of their love and money into Vanessa. Vanessa was sensitive. Vanessa was fragile. If Vanessa failed a test, it was the teacher's fault. My parents would go to the school and argue until the grade was changed. If I got a B instead of an A, they would ask me why I didn't study harder. I became the fixer. When I was 16, the washing machine broke. My father was at work, and my mother was driving Vanessa to dance class. Water was flooding the laundry room floor. I didn't call them. I knew they wouldn't answer, or they would panic and yell at me for bothering them. I turned off the water valve. I got all the towels in the house and mopped it up. I found the manual, opened the back panel, and found a clogged hose. I fixed it. When they came home, the floor was dry. The machine was running. I told my dad, "The washer leaked, but I fixed it." He didn't look up from his mail. "Good job, Ruby," he mumbled. Then he turned to Vanessa. "How was dance, princess? Did you get the solo?" I stood in the hallway, my hands smelling like dirty water and grease, watching them hug her. I realized then that my needs were invisible because I made them invisible. I thought if I was perfect, if I caused 0 problems, if I fixed everything, they would finally love me as much as they loved her. I thought my usefulness was the price of admission to this family. I was wrong. Being useful didn't make them love me more. It just made them use me more. I grew up believing that love was a transaction. I give you stability, you give me. Well, I was still waiting to see what they would give me. I was the background character in the movie of Vanessa's life, and background characters don't get the big scenes. They just keep the set standing so the star can shine. The shift from helper to savior happened 5 years ago. It was a gloomy Sunday afternoon. I had just gotten a promotion at my job. I was 24, working as a project manager at a logistics firm. It was good money. I was proud of myself. I had an apartment with my boyfriend, Ethan. We were saving for a trip to Italy. My phone rang. It was my mother. She was crying. "Ruby, you have to come over," she sobbed. "It's a disaster." I drove over immediately. My heart was pounding. I thought someone had died. When I walked into the kitchen, my parents were sitting at the table. My father looked pale and defeated. My mother was shredding a tissue in her hands. There were bank letters spread out all over the table. Red stamps, warnings. "What is it?" I asked. "Is everyone okay?" "We're losing the house," my dad said. His voice cracked. They explained it in circles. Dad had made some bad investments. Mom had spent too much on credit cards. They had refinanced the house twice. Now they were 3 months behind on the mortgage. The bank was threatening foreclosure. "We don't know what to do," Mom cried. "This is our home. This is where you girls grew up. We can't lose it." I looked at the numbers. It was bad. They needed $3,000 immediately just to stop the foreclosure, and then $2,000 a month to keep it. They looked at me. They didn't ask directly. They just looked at me with those sad, desperate eyes. The same eyes that looked past me for years were now locked onto me. "I can help," I heard myself say. It was automatic. I was the fixer. This was the ultimate broken washing machine. "I can cover the mortgage," I said. "Until you get back on your feet." My mother jumped up and hugged me. "Oh, Ruby, thank God, you're an angel, just for a little while, just until Dad's business picks up." Just for a little while turned into 5 years. The next day I transferred the money. I watched my savings account drop. The money for Italy was gone. "It's okay," I told Ethan that night. I felt sick, but I tried to smile. "It's family, they need me. It won't be forever." Ethan was quiet. He didn't like it, but he supported me. "As long as they appreciate it, Ruby." But they didn't, acting like people in debt. A month later, I went to visit them. I had been eating instant noodles for lunch to save money. I had canceled my gym membership. I was wearing old shoes because I couldn't afford new ones. I walked into their living room and saw a massive new flat-screen TV on the wall. "Do you like it?" Mom asked, beaming. "Vanessa said we needed an upgrade for movie nights." My stomach turned. "Mom, how did you afford this? I just paid your mortgage yesterday." She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, put it on a store card. No interest for 6 months. Don't be such a sourpuss, Ruby. We need a little joy in our lives. It's been so stressful." I didn't say anything. I swallowed the anger. I told myself they were grieving their financial freedom. I made excuses for them. Every month for 60 months, I paid that bill. It became a ritual. On the first of the month, I sat at my computer. I logged in. I clicked transfer. $2,000. Gone. That money could have been a down payment on my own house. It could have been a wedding fund for Ethan and me. It could have been a safety net. Instead, it was the price of keeping my parents comfortable. They never asked me if I struggled. Not once in 5 years did my father ask, "Ruby, is this hurting you financially?" They just assumed I had an endless supply of money. Or maybe they just didn't care where it came from, as long as the check cleared. I stopped going on vacations. Ethan and I stayed home on weekends. We cooked cheap meals. I worked overtime to make up the difference. I was tired all the time. Deep in my bones, I was exhausted. Meanwhile, my parents went out to dinner. They bought Vanessa new clothes for her interviews. They kept up appearances. To the outside world, they were successful homeowners. I was the secret engine keeping the ship moving, shoveling my own future into the furnace so they could stay warm. And the worst part, they never said thank you. After the first few months, the payments just became expected. It was just what Ruby did. Ruby pays the bills. Ruby fixes the problems. Ruby doesn't need a thank you because Ruby is strong. I was paying for a house I didn't live in, for parents who didn't see me, to support a lifestyle I couldn't afford for myself. If I was the shadow, Vanessa was the sun. And my parents loved to bask in the sunlight. The inequality wasn't just about money, it was about worth. 2 years into my mortgage arrangement, Vanessa graduated from college. She had taken 6 years to get a 4-year degree because she needed to find herself and switched majors 3 times. My parents paid for all of it. Or rather, the money they should have used for their mortgage went to her tuition and sorority fees. For her graduation, they threw a massive party in the backyard that I was paying for. There were catered tents, a DJ, and an open bar. I stood by the drinks table, nursing a soda. I did the math in my head. This party cost at least $4,000. That was 2 months of mortgage payments. I walked up to my dad. "Dad, this is a lot. I thought you guys were tight on cash." He clapped me on the shoulder, a little too hard. He was already tipsy. "Ruby, relax, it's your sister's big day. You only graduate once. Let her have her moment." Then came the gifts. My parents led Vanessa to the driveway. Everyone followed. There, sitting with a giant red bow on the roof, was a brand new car. It wasn't a luxury car, but it was new. A practical, reliable sedan. Vanessa screamed. She jumped up and down. "Oh my God. Mommy, Daddy, you're the best." I felt the blood drain from my face. When I graduated, I got a card. Inside was a $50 bill. I remembered that day clearly. I had graduated with honors. I had worked 2 jobs through college to pay my own tuition so they wouldn't have to. I stood in my cap and gown, holding that $50, and my mom had said, "We're so proud of you, Ruby. You're so capable. We know you'll buy something sensible with that." $50. And here was a car. I looked at Ethan. He was standing next to me, holding my hand. His grip was tight. He was angry for me. "This isn't right, Ruby," he whispered. "I know," I whispered back. "But I didn't make a scene. I never made a scene." Later that night, as the party was winding down, I found my mom in the kitchen. "A car, Mom?" I asked quietly. "I'm paying your house payment, and you bought her a car," she sighed, looking annoyed that I was bringing down the mood. "Ruby, she needs it for interviews. She can't get a job without transportation. You have a job, you have a car. You're established. Vanessa is just starting out. She needs a leg up." "I needed a leg up too," I said. "But you didn't need it," she said, as if that explained everything. "You're Ruby, you always land on your feet." "Vanessa. She needs help." That was the narrative. I was strong, so I deserved nothing. Vanessa was weak, so she deserved everything. It wasn't just the big things. It was the daily emotional crumbs. When Vanessa had a bad breakup, my mom spent a week at her apartment, cooking her soup and rubbing her back. When I had a health scare and needed a biopsy, my mom said, "Oh, I'm sure it's benign, honey. Let me know the results." "I can't come down. Vanessa is having a crisis with her hairstylist." It's a slow poison, being the invisible child. It doesn't kill you all at once. It just erodes you. It eats away at your self-worth until you start to believe them. Maybe I don't need help. Maybe I am a machine. Maybe I don't have feelings, but I did have feelings, and they were getting hotter and sharper every day. I looked at Vanessa, sitting in her new car, honking the horn while my parents laughed and clapped. They looked like a perfect family. And I was the banker standing on the sidelines, funding the show but not allowed on stage. I realized then that they didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a resource, and resources don't get gifts. They get used. Then came the engagement. Vanessa met a guy named Mark. He was nice enough, but just like Vanessa, he wasn't very good with money. They wanted a fairy tale wedding. My parents, of course, promised to give it to them. "We want to give her the wedding of her dreams," my mom told me over the phone. "Mom," I said, my voice warning, "you can't afford a big wedding. You still owe on the house." "Oh, don't worry about the house," she said breezily. "We have a plan." I assumed the plan was Ruby will keep paying. The months leading up to the wedding were a blur of expense. I saw the bills lying on their counter when I visited. The florist bill alone was astronomical. The dress cost more than my first car. I tried to talk to them. "You guys are digging a hole," I warned. "Stop being so negative," my father snapped at me one evening. "It's a celebration. Family helps family." The wedding day arrived. It was at a fancy country club. The decorations were lavish. There were crystal centerpieces, thousands of white roses, and a live orchestra. I was the maid of honor. I wore the dress Vanessa picked out, a pale yellow that made me look washed out. I held her bouquet. I fixed her train. I smiled for the pictures. I watched my father walk her down the aisle. He looked so proud. He had tears in his eyes. I sat in the front row next to Ethan. "How are they paying for this?" Ethan whispered to me, looking around at the opulence. "I don't know," I said. A cold knot was forming in my stomach. "I really don't know." The ceremony ended, and we moved to the reception. The champagne flowed. The speeches began. The best man gave a funny speech. Vanessa's college roommate gave a tearful speech. Then my father took the microphone. My mother stood next to him, holding that blue folder. The room went quiet. "We have one last gift," my father said. His voice echoed through the hall. "Mark, Vanessa, we know how hard it is to start a life together in this economy. We want you to have a strong foundation." My mother stepped forward, beaming. "We didn't want to just give you a toaster, we wanted to give you a future." She held up the folder. "We're giving them our home," she announced. "The deed to the house is yours, free and clear. We paid off the remaining balance this week." The crowd went wild. It was a movie moment, the generous parents, the stunned couple. I sat there, frozen. They paid off the remaining balance. How? And then it hit me. They must have used his retirement fund. Or sold something. Or maybe they inherited money and didn't tell me. But that wasn't the part that hurt. The part that hurt was the wording. "We're giving them our home." The home I saved. The home I paid for. For 5 years, I poured my life into that house. I kept the lights on. I kept the walls standing. And now they were handing it to Vanessa like a prize for getting married. Vanessa ran up and hugged them. "You guys are the best parents in the world," she sobbed into the microphone. "We love you, baby," my dad said. I looked at Ethan. His jaw was dropped. He looked at me with horror. He knew every dollar I had sent. "Ruby," he whispered, "did you know about this?" "No," I whispered. My voice was dead. I looked at the stage. My mother caught my eye for a fleeting second. She didn't look guilty. She looked excited. She gave me a little wave, as if to say, "Isn't this wonderful?" She truly didn't understand. She didn't understand that she wasn't just giving away a house. She was giving away my sacrifice. She was taking 5 years of my sweat and labor, wrapping it in a bow, and handing it to the golden child. I felt something detach inside me. It was a physical sensation, like a rope snapping. All the years of being the good girl. All the years of fixing it. All the years of hoping that if I just paid enough, did enough, suffered enough, they would finally see me. They didn't see me, they never would. To them, I was just the wallet. Vanessa was the daughter. I stood up. Ethan grabbed my hand. "Where are you going?" "I need air," I said. I walked out of the ballroom. I walked past the cheering guests. I walked past the open bar. I walked out the double doors into the cool night air. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I stood in the parking lot, looking at the stars. The music from the reception thumped in the distance. I took my phone out of my purse. I opened my banking app. I looked at the scheduled transfer for next month. $2,000. I clicked cancel, then I clicked delete payee. It was a small click. But it sounded like a gunshot in the quiet night. I was done. The text message from my mother arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. It was short, cheerful, and completely ignored the fact that she had just shattered my heart 3 weeks ago at the wedding. Family dinner at Vanessa's new house. Sunday at 6 p.m. Dad is making his famous roast. Don't be late. I stared at my phone screen for a long time. I was sitting at my desk at work. The fluorescent lights hummed above me. I felt a familiar heavy stone settle in my stomach. For years, that stone had been there. It was the weight of obligation. It was the feeling that I had to say yes, because if I said no, I was the problem. If I said no, I was the bad daughter. I showed the phone to Ethan that night. We were in our kitchen, making a simple pasta dinner. "Do you want to go?" he asked. He stopped chopping vegetables and looked at me. His eyes were worried. He hated how they treated me. "I don't want to go," I said honestly. "But if I don't go, they will spin the story. They will say I am jealous of Vanessa. They will say I am bitter because she got the house. They will make themselves the victims." "They already made you the victim, Ruby," Ethan said. He put the knife down. "But I'll go with you. I won't let you do it alone." Sunday came too quickly. The drive to the house was painful. It was the house I grew up in. It was the house I had saved. Every time the car tires rolled over the pavement, I remembered a transfer I had made. November 2021, $2,000 for the mortgage. December 2022, $3,500 for the unexpected roof repair. July 2023, $2,000 so Mom wouldn't cry about losing her garden. We pulled into the driveway. It was strange to see Vanessa's car parked in the master spot, the spot where my father always parked. My parents' car was parked on the street. We walked up the path. The front door opened before we even knocked. "You made it," my mother chirped. She was wearing an apron. She looked bustling and busy, like she owned the place. I walked inside. The smell hit me first. It was the smell of roasting meat and rosemary. It was the smell of my childhood. But the house looked different. My mother was already changing things. Don't trip on the rug, Mom said, ushering us in. I'm trying to move the furniture around. Vanessa needs a better flow in here. The feng shui was all wrong. I looked into the living room. My mother had pushed the heavy oak sofa, the one I had helped pay to reupholster, against the far wall. She had dragged the coffee table to a weird angle. Vanessa was sitting on the floor, flipping through a magazine. She looked bored. She wasn't helping. She was letting Mom do all the work. Hi, Ruby, Vanessa said, barely looking up. Do you like the changes? Mom says it opens up the room. It looks different, I said. My father came out of the kitchen. He was holding a glass of red wine. He looked relaxed. He looked like a man who didn't have a mortgage to worry about anymore. Ruby. Ethan, he boomed. Welcome to the newlyweds' castle. Come sit. Dinner is almost ready. We sat at the dining room table. It was the same table where I had sat 5 years ago when they told me they were broke. It was the same table where I had agreed to save them. Now I was a guest. My mother brought out the roast. She carved it with dramatic flair. She served Vanessa first, giving her the best cut of meat. Then Mark, Vanessa's husband. Then my father, then Ethan. Finally, she put a small, dry piece on my plate. So, my mother said, sitting down and smoothing her napkin. This is nice, isn't it, all of us together? It's lovely, Mom, Vanessa said. Thanks for cooking. I was too tired to even think about food. Oh, you rest, sweetie, Mom said. Planning a wedding is exhausting. You need to recover. I cut my meat. I chewed. It tasted like ash. We made small talk for 20 minutes. We talked about the weather. We talked about the neighbors. We talked about Mark's new job. Then the tone changed. My father cleared his throat. He put his fork down. He looked at my mother. They exchanged a look. It was a look I knew well. It was the look of a plan. We have some news, my father announced. My stomach tightened. What news? Well, my mother started, smiling a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Since we gave this beautiful home to Vanessa and Mark, your father and I are officially homeless. She laughed, like it was a funny joke. We can't stay here forever, she continued. Vanessa and Mark are newlyweds. They need their privacy. They need to walk around in their underwear if they want to. They don't need Mom and Dad in the guest room. Okay, I said, my voice steady. So, are you renting an apartment? Vanessa snorted. An apartment. Mom would die in an apartment. She needs a garden. Exactly, my father said. We are not apartment people, Ruby. You know that. We need space. So, what is the plan? Ethan asked. He was gripping my hand under the table. My mother turned her gaze to me. Her eyes were bright and expectant. We've decided the best solution is for us to move into your vacation house, she said. She said it so casually. Like she was saying, we decided to have dessert. The room went silent. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I blinked. Excuse me. Your vacation house, she repeated, speaking slower as if I were stupid. The cabin at the lake, it's perfect. It's fully furnished. It has a garden, it's quiet. We can move in next weekend. It's sitting empty half the time anyway, my father added, taking a sip of wine. It's a waste. This way we keep it occupied. We'll pay the electric bill and the water. You cover the mortgage and the taxes, obviously, since it's your investment. It works out for everyone. They had it all worked out. They had discussed this. They had agreed on it. They just needed to inform me. I looked at them. I looked at their expectant faces. They truly believed that everything I owned was actually theirs. They believed that because I was the capable one, my resources were community property. They had taken my money for 5 years. They had taken the house I saved. Now, they wanted my sanctuary. The lake house was the one thing that was mine. I bought it when it was a wreck. I scraped paint off the floors until my hands bled. I chose every curtain. I chose every mug in the cupboard. It was the only place where I felt safe, where I felt away from them. We already started packing the winter clothes, Mom said cheerfully. I'll need the alarm code, Ruby, and I think I still have an old key, but I'd like a new set just in case. She reached out her hand, as if expecting me to drop the keys into her palm right there over the roast beef. Inside my chest, something hot and violent woke up. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't hurt. It was pure, white-hot rage. I looked at the piece of dry meat on my plate. I looked at Vanessa, who was checking her text messages, not even caring that her parents were hijacking my life. I took a deep breath. No, I said. The word hung in the air. It was quiet, but it was heavy. My mother's smile faltered. What did you say? I said no, I repeated. I looked her directly in the eyes. You cannot move into my vacation house. My father laughed nervously. Ruby, stop joking, we need a place to live. I am not joking, I said. You gave away your home. That was your choice. You didn't ask me before you did it. You didn't consider where you would live. You just did it to look like heroes in front of your friends. We did it for your sister, my mother snapped. Her voice got shrill. We did it to give her a start in life. And what about my start? I asked. I didn't yell. My voice was deadly calm. I paid your mortgage for 5 years, Mom. 5 years. That money was my start. You took it. You never thanked me, and then you gave the house to her. That is in the past, my father shouted. He slammed his hand on the table. The silverware rattled. Why do you always bring up money? You are so obsessed with money, Ruby. It's ugly. I bring it up because you are asking for a free house, I said. You want to live in my house rent-free while I pay for it. Again, just like I paid for this one. We are your parents, Mom screamed. Tears started to well up in her eyes, her weapon of choice. How can you be so selfish? We have nowhere to go. Do you want us to sleep on the street? You have money, I said. You have pensions. You can rent a condo. You can rent an apartment. You have options. You just don't want to spend your own money. You want to spend mine. Vanessa, Mom turned to my sister. Talk to her. Tell her she's being crazy. Vanessa looked up, annoyed that she was being dragged into it. Ruby, seriously, just let them stay there. You hardly use it. Don't be a hoarder. I looked at my sister, the golden child. If you are so worried about them, I said to Vanessa, why don't they live here? This is a 4-bedroom house. I paid for the roof over your head. You have plenty of room. Vanessa recoiled. No, we're newlyweds. We need our space. And I need my space, I said. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I stood tall. The answer is no, I said. You are not moving into the lake house. Do not go there. Do not try to move your boxes in. You are not welcome. If you walk out that door, my father said, standing up and pointing a finger at me, his face red with anger, don't you dare come back. You are turning your back on family. No, Dad, I said. I'm turning my back on being used. I looked at Ethan. Let's go. Ethan stood up instantly. He threw his napkin on the table. Excellent roast, he said dryly. Shame about the company. We walked to the front door. You're an ungrateful brat, my mother screamed from the dining room. I hope you rot in that cabin alone. I opened the door and walked out into the night. The cool air hit my face. I felt like I had just jumped out of a burning building. I was terrified, but I was alive. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't get the car keys into the ignition. I sat in the driver's seat of my car, staring at the dark steering wheel. My breath was coming in short, sharp gasps. I can't believe I said that, I whispered. I can't believe I actually said no. Ethan reached over. He took the keys from my trembling hand. Move over, he said gently. I'm driving. I climbed into the passenger seat. As we pulled away from the curb, I looked back at the house. The windows were glowing with warm yellow light. It looked so cozy from the outside. No one would guess that inside, a family was tearing itself apart. No one would guess that the daughter who paid the bills had just been cast out. I didn't cry until we were on the highway. Then, it hit me. I cried for the little girl who tried to be perfect. I cried for the teenager who fixed the washing machine. I cried for the woman who sent $2,000 every month, hoping it would buy her a seat at the table. It never did. It's okay, Ethan said. He held my hand while he drove. Let it out. You've been holding this in for a lifetime. By the time we got to our apartment, my tears had dried. A cold, hard resolve had taken their place. They aren't going to listen, I told Ethan as we walked into our kitchen. They don't believe me. They think I'm having a tantrum. They think I'll call tomorrow and apologize and give them the keys. Then we make sure they can't get in, Ethan said. I sat down at the kitchen table. I didn't even take off my coat. I opened my laptop. Step 1, the phone. I opened my contacts. I clicked on Mom. I scrolled down to the bottom, block caller. I did the same for Dad. I hesitated on Vanessa, but then I remembered her face at the dinner table. Don't be a hoarder. I blocked her too. The silence that followed was instant. No buzzing, no guilt-tripping texts, no voicemails. Step 2, the lake house. I logged into the smart home system for my cabin. I deleted every user code except mine and Ethan's. I deleted the code labeled Parents Emergency. I changed the master password. They have a physical key, I said, chewing my lip. From before I put the smart lock on, Dad kept a copy. We can't change the locks tonight, Ethan said, but we can make it impossible for them to stay. I called the security company. It was late, but they had a 24-hour line. I need to update my protocol, I told the operator. I have a disgruntled family member who has an old key. If the alarm is disarmed with a key but not the code, I want the police called immediately. We can do that, the operator said. I'll put a do not admit notice on the account. Step 3, the evidence. I needed to see it. I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't the crazy one. I logged into my bank account. I went to the search bar. I typed in transfer to mom. The list populated. It went on, page after page of transfers. January 4th, $2,000. February 2nd, $2,000. March 3rd, $2,500. I hit print, the printer word in the corner of the room. It spit out page after page. I took a 3-hole punch and a black binder. I organized them by year. When I was done, the binder was heavy. It was a physical brick of evidence. I opened it and did the math. I used a calculator, adding up every single line. The final number was $124,500. I stared at the number. That was a down payment on a house for me. That was a master's degree. That was a wedding. That was a retirement fund. I had given them everything, and they had called me selfish because I wouldn't give them more. Look at this, I whispered to Ethan. I pushed the calculator toward him. He looked at the number. He went pale. Ruby. That's the price of my stupidity, I said. No, he said firmly. That is the price of your love. You loved them. You tried to save them. That's not stupidity, Ruby. That's generosity. The fact that they abused it is on them, not you. He was right, but it still hurt. I closed the binder. I wrote past on the spine in thick black marker. I put the binder on the shelf. I'm done, I said. I'm never sending them another cent. The next morning, the air felt different. Usually, on Mondays, I woke up checking my phone, worried about a crisis. Did mom overdraft? Did dad need gas money? This morning, my phone was silent. I showered, I dressed for work. I put on my favorite blazer. I looked in the mirror. I looked tired. My eyes were puffy, but my shoulders were back. My spine was straight. I went to work. I sat in meetings. I answered emails. And every time my mind drifted to my parents, every time I wondered if they were angry, I visualized the binder. $124,500. I visualized the roast beef dinner. We need your house. And the guilt evaporated. 2 days later, an email popped up in my inbox. It was from my father. Since I had blocked his text, he had moved to email. Subject: Lake House weekend. Ruby, stop being dramatic. We are packing the truck. We are going up to the lake house on Saturday. We expect the alarm to be off. We are your parents and we demand respect. We will discuss your attitude when we settle in. I read it twice. He truly didn't believe me. He lived in a world where I always caved. He was betting on my weakness. I didn't reply. I didn't forward it to Vanessa. I forwarded it to Ethan. Then, I forwarded it to the local police department in the town where my cabin was located, with a short note. I am the owner of address. I have informed these individuals they are not welcome. If they arrive, they are trespassing. I hit send. My hand didn't shake this time. I was reclaiming my life, one click at a time. I was building a wall, brick by brick. And for the first time, I was standing on the safe side of it. Saturday morning started like any other Saturday. I was at the grocery store. I was standing in the produce aisle, squeezing avocados, trying to find one that wasn't too hard or too mushy. It was a mundane task. It was normal. It was the kind of peace I had been craving. Then my phone rang. It wasn't a text. It was a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was an 800 number. I answered it. Hello, this is Safeguard Security, a woman's voice said. She sounded urgent. Is this Ruby Miller? Yes, I said. I put the avocado down. My heart started to beat faster. Miss Miller, we are receiving a perimeter breach alert at your property on Lakeview Drive. The front door sensor has been triggered. I froze. The grocery store sounds, the cartwheels, the beeping registers, the chatter faded away. Did they use a code? I asked. No, ma'am, the operator said. The alarm was not disarmed via the keypad. It appears the door was opened with a physical key, but the alarm system was not deactivated. The siren is currently sounding. They had done it. My father had actually done it. He had driven 2 hours north, ignored my emails, ignored my warnings, and used an old key to open the door. He thought that because he was my father, the rules of physics and the law didn't apply to him. He thought he could just walk in, turn off the alarm, and make himself at home. Dispatch the police, I said. My voice was shaking, not with fear but with adrenaline. We have a note on your account to contact the police immediately in case of unauthorized entry, the operator confirmed. Officers have been dispatched. They should be there in 15 minutes. I'm on my way, I said. I am the owner. I want them removed. I hung up. I left my grocery cart right there in the aisle. I didn't care about the food. I walked out to my car. I called Ethan. They broke in, I said as soon as he answered. I'm coming, he said. He didn't ask questions, he knew. Meet you there. The drive to the lake house usually took 2 hours. I don't remember much of the drive. I remember gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I remember the landscape blurring past me. I wasn't sad anymore. I was finished. This was the final violation. They had taken my money. They had taken my childhood. Now they were trying to take my safe space. When I turned onto the gravel driveway leading to the cabin, my stomach dropped. I saw the blue lights flashing through the trees. There were 2 police cruisers parked in my driveway. The lights were spinning, casting harsh blue shadows on the pine trees. My parents' SUV was parked on the grass. The trunk was open. Suitcases were piled on the ground. A cooler was sitting next to them. They had really planned to move in. I pulled up behind the police cars and turned off my engine. The silence of the woods was broken by the crackle of the police radios. I stepped out of the car. My mother was standing on the porch. She was wearing her weekend clothes, white capris and a floral blouse. She was screaming at a police officer. "This is ridiculous," she yelled. She pointed at the house. "This is my daughter's house. We are family. You can't treat us like criminals." My father was sitting on the steps of the porch. He had his head in his hands. He looked small. He looked defeated. The police officer, a tall man with a stern face, turned when he saw me approach. "Ma'am, stay back," he warned. "I'm the owner," I said loudly. I held up my driver's license. "I'm Ruby Miller." The officer's expression softened slightly. He walked over to me. "Miss Miller, these individuals claim to be your parents. They say they have permission to be here." I looked at my mother. She stopped screaming when she saw me. Her face went from angry to hopeful in a split second. "Ruby," she cried out. She ran down the steps past the officer. "Ruby, tell them. Tell them this is all a big mistake. Tell them we live here." She reached for me. She tried to hug me. I stepped back. I put my hands up. "Don't touch me," I said. My mother froze. She looked like I had slapped her. I turned to the officer. "They are my parents," I said clearly. "But they do not live here. They do not have permission to be here. I explicitly told them in writing not to come." "See," my father shouted from the steps. He stood up, his face red with embarrassment. "She's lying. She's just being a brat. We have a key. Look, I have the key right here." He held up the old brass key. "That is an unauthorized key," I told the officer. "I changed the locks to a digital system. They used an old spare key I gave them years ago for emergencies. This is not an emergency. This is a break-in." The officer looked at my father. "Sir, put the key down." "This is my daughter's house," my father sputtered. "I paid for her college. I raised her." "That doesn't make you the owner of this property," the officer said calmly. He turned back to me. "Miss Miller, since they are family, and there is no sign of forced entry besides the key, we usually treat this as a civil dispute. However, since you are here and stating they are trespassing, we can remove them. Do you want to press criminal charges for breaking and entering?" The air went still. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. My mother looked at me. Her eyes were wide with terror. She knew what criminal charges meant. It meant handcuffs. It meant a mugshot. It meant jail time. "Ruby," she whispered, "please don't." I looked at them. I saw the people who had favored my sister for 28 years. I saw the people who took $124,500 of my money and never said thank you. I saw the people who thought my no was a suggestion. I had the power to destroy them right now. I could ruin their reputation. I could put them in a cell. But I realized I didn't want revenge. I just wanted them gone. "No," I said to the officer. "I don't want to press charges." My mother let out a loud sob of relief. "But," I continued, my voice hard as stone, "I want them formally trespassed. I want a police report stating that they are banned from this property. If they ever set foot here again, I want them arrested immediately." "Understood," the officer said. He walked over to my parents. He took out his notepad. "Folks, the owner has declined to press charges today. You are lucky. However, you are being issued a criminal trespass warning. You need to pack your things and leave this property immediately. If you return, you will be arrested. Do you understand?" "But we have nowhere to go," my mother wailed. "We rented a truck. We gave up our apartment search. We can't go back." "That is not a police matter, ma'am," the officer said. "You have 10 minutes to vacate." I stood by my car, arms crossed, watching them. It was pathetic. My father, who always acted so big and important, was struggling to zip up a suitcase. My mother was crying, throwing loose clothes into the trunk of their car. They looked at me. They wanted me to help. They wanted me to be the fixer one last time. They wanted me to say, "It's okay, just stay for tonight." I didn't move. I didn't speak, I just watched. Ethan arrived just as they were closing their trunk. He pulled his car up next to mine and got out. He stood next to me, a silent wall of support. My father walked past us to get to the driver's side of his car. He stopped. He looked me in the eye. "You are cold," he spat. "You are a cold, heartless girl. I don't know who you are anymore." "I'm the daughter you created," I said. "You taught me that money matters more than people. You taught me that feelings don't matter. I just learned the lesson." He flinched. He got into the car and slammed the door. My mother looked at me through the passenger window. She looked old. She looked scared. They backed out of the driveway. The gravel crunched under their tires. The police cruiser followed them to ensure they left the main road. When the taillights disappeared around the bend, the silence rushed back into the woods. I walked up the steps to the porch. I saw the old brass key sitting on the railing where the officer had made my dad leave it. I picked it up. It felt heavy. I walked to the edge of the woods. I threw the key as hard as I could into the dense brush. I heard it land with a soft thud. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked, coming up behind me. "I think so," I said. I took a deep breath of the pine-scented air. "I think that was the hardest thing I've ever done." "It's over," he said. "They can't come back." We went inside. I reset the alarm. I checked the cameras. For the first time, the cabin felt truly mine. It wasn't a place I was holding for them. It was a fortress, and the drawbridge was pulled up. The aftermath of the lake house incident was ugly but distant. Because I had blocked them, I didn't have to hear the direct screaming. But families talk. Gossip spreads like a virus. I heard from my cousin, Sarah, what happened next. "They went to Vanessa's house," Sarah told me over coffee a week later. She looked uncomfortable telling me, but I asked her to be honest. "Of course they did," I said, stirring my latte. "How did that go?" Sarah grimaced. "Bad. Vanessa and Mark were furious. Apparently, your mom walked in crying, demanding the guest room, but Mark uses the guest room as his home office now. He refused to move his computers." I almost laughed. "So, the golden child didn't want to give up her comfort?" "Nope," Sarah said. "Vanessa told them they could stay on the couch for 2 nights max. And she made them pay for pizza that first night. It was poetic justice. Vanessa, who had received a free house, free car, and free wedding, wouldn't even give them a bed. She was exactly who they raised her to be. Selfish and entitled. My parents left Vanessa's house after 2 days. The tension was too high. Without my monthly transfers, and without a free house to squat in, their reality crashed down on them hard. They had to rent an apartment. But because they had bad credit and no substantial income, their options were limited. They ended up in a complex on the south side of town. It wasn't a terrible neighborhood, but it was far from the country club lifestyle they pretended to have. It was a small, one-bedroom apartment with thin walls and beige carpet. I knew this because my mother called me from a payphone 3 weeks later. She must have known I blocked her cell. I answered, thinking it was a work client. "Ruby," the voice was unmistakable, but it sounded different. It lacked the haughty confidence. It sounded thin, shaky, and broken. I hesitated. My finger hovered over the end call button. But curiosity, or maybe a need for closure, made me stay on the line. "What do you want, Mom?" I asked. "It's awful here," she whispered. She sounded like she was crying. "The tap in the bathroom drips all night. The neighbors play loud music. It smells like stale cigarettes in the hallway. Ruby, please." "Please what?" I asked. "Please help us," she begged. "We made a mistake. We know we messed up, just. Can you help us with the deposit for a better place? Or maybe let us use the lake house just for the winter. We won't bother you, we promise." I listened to her. 5 years ago, this call would have broken me. I would have transferred the money instantly. I would have driven over there and fixed the dripping tap myself. I would have apologized for their bad situation. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I thought about the binder in my closet. The $124,500 binder. I thought about the wedding. "We're giving them our home." I thought about the police officer on my driveway. "I can't help you, Mom," I said. My voice was calm. It wasn't angry, it was just a statement of fact. "You mean you won't?" she accused, a flash of her old anger returning. "I mean I won't," I agreed. "You are adults. You made financial decisions. You gave away your biggest asset, your home, to Vanessa. Now you are living with the consequences of that generosity. You should ask Vanessa for help. Vanessa doesn't have money, Mom snapped. She's just starting out. And I'm just starting out too, I said, but I spent my start supporting you, I'm done. You are cruel, she sobbed. I gave birth to you. And I kept a roof over your head for 5 years, I said. I think we're even. Goodbye, Mom, I hung up. I sat there for a moment, waiting for the guilt to hit me. I waited for the crushing feeling that I was a bad daughter. It didn't come. Instead, I felt a strange sense of lightness. It was the feeling of dropping a heavy backpack after a long hike. I realized then that I needed to sever the final tie, the lake house. Even though I had secured it, it was tainted now. Every time I went there, I would remember the police cars in the driveway. I would remember my father shouting. It wasn't a sanctuary anymore, it was a battleground. I called a real estate agent that afternoon. I want to sell the cabin on Lakeview Drive, I said. It's a great market, the agent said. Are you sure it's a beautiful property? I'm sure, I said. I want a clean slate. We listed it the next day. Because I had renovated it so beautifully, it sparked a bidding war. It sold in 4 days. It sold for $80,000 more than I paid for it. When the closing documents were signed, I stared at the check. It was a massive sum of money. My old instinct whispered to me, you should give some of this to them. They are suffering in that apartment. It would be the nice thing to do. I silenced that voice. That voice was a liar. That voice was the people pleaser in me, the girl who thought love could be bought. I took the check to the bank. I deposited it into a brand new high-yield savings account. I named the account Ruby's Freedom Fund. I didn't tell my parents I sold the house. They found out, of course. I got a furious email from my father. We heard you sold the cabin. You made a fortune. Your mother is sick with stress. If you have any decency, you will share that profit with the family. We are struggling. I didn't reply. I dragged the email to the trash folder. Then I emptied the trash. It was a symbolic gesture, but it felt good. The golden child dynamic had crumbled. Vanessa was avoiding them because they were needy. They were resentful of Vanessa for not helping, and they were furious at me for finally having boundaries. They were miserable. But for the first time in my life, their misery was not my responsibility to fix. I was watching a storm rage from behind a thick pane of glass. I could see the rain, I could see the lightning, but I wasn't getting wet anymore. I turned to Ethan that night at dinner. I booked something, I said, a mischievous smile on my face. Oh, he smiled back. What did you book? Italy, I said. 2 weeks. Tuscany, Florence, and Rome, first class. 5-star hotels. Ethan dropped his fork. Ruby, are you serious? That's expensive. I can afford it, I said. I have a lot of money that I'm not spending on other people's mortgages anymore. He laughed. It was a joyful, relieved sound. Italy it is. I looked at him, and I felt a surge of excitement. Not for the trip, but for the life that was waiting for me. A life where my resources, my energy, and my love were going to the people who actually cherished me. The fall of my parents was sad. It was a tragedy of their own making. But I wasn't going to go down with the ship. I had already spent 5 years bailing out the water. It was time to swim for shore. I woke up before the alarm. The room was unfamiliar, but it wasn't scary. The ceiling was high, with painted wooden beams. The shutters on the windows were closed, letting in thin slivers of golden light. I lay there for a moment, my heart beating slow and steady. Usually when I woke up, my first thought was a checklist of panic. Did I pay the electric bill for Mom? Did I remind Dad about his appointment? Is Vanessa mad at me? My brain would start racing before my feet even touched the floor. I would reach for my phone like it was a grenade, terrified of what message might be waiting on the screen. But this morning, there was nothing. My mind reached out for the worry, like a tongue probing a missing tooth, but the worry wasn't there. There was only a quiet, empty space. I turned my head. Ethan was sleeping soundly beside me. We were in Florence, Italy. We were 4,000 miles away from the apartment complex where my parents lived. We were 4,000 miles away from the house I gave to Vanessa. I slid out of bed. The terracotta tiles were cool under my feet. I walked to the window and pushed open the heavy wooden shutters. The city of Florence lay below me. It was breathtaking. The rooftops were a sea of red clay tiles. In the distance, the great dome of the cathedral rose up against a sky that was turning pink and orange with the sunrise. The air smelled like roasting coffee and river water. I took a deep breath. For the first time in 30 years, my breath moved easily. It went all the way down to the bottom of my lungs. There was no tightness. There was no invisible hand squeezing my chest. I went to the small kitchen in our rental apartment. I made a pot of coffee. The ritual was simple: grinding the beans, boiling the water, pouring the dark liquid into a white mug. I sat by the open window, wrapping my hands around the warm mug, and I let myself think about them. It was dangerous, usually, to think about them. It usually brought guilt. But today, here in this beautiful place, I felt safe enough to look at the truth. I thought about my mother. I imagined her in her small apartment. She was probably awake now, too. She was probably complaining to my father about the neighbors. She was probably telling herself a story about how her ungrateful daughter abandoned her. I knew that story well. She had been telling it to everyone who would listen. A year ago, that thought would have destroyed me. I would have wanted to call her. I would have wanted to explain myself. I would have wanted to fix her narrative so she would see me as good. But as I watched a flock of birds circle over the Italian rooftops, I realized something profound. I cannot control her story. She is allowed to be the victim in her own mind. She is allowed to think I am the villain. Her opinion of me is not my reality. My reality is the bank account that is solely in my name. My reality is the silence on my phone. My reality is the man sleeping in the next room who loves me for me, not for what I can pay for. I took a sip of coffee. It was strong and bitter, just the way I liked it. I thought about the word selfish. That was their favorite weapon. You're being selfish, Ruby. They used that word like a knife. They used it to cut away my boundaries. They used it to carve out pieces of my life to feed themselves. But sitting here, I redefined that word. Was it selfish to want to keep the money I earned? Was it selfish to want to live in my own house? Was it selfish to want a thank you? No, that wasn't selfishness. That was self-preservation. I had spent my entire life setting myself on fire to keep them warm. And when I finally stopped burning, they didn't ask if I was okay. They just complained that it was cold. That was the clarity I needed. They didn't miss me. They missed the fire. They missed the heat. They missed the resources. If I went back today and handed them a check for $50,000, they would love me again. Instantly. My mother would hug me. My father would brag about me. But that isn't love. That is a transaction. I am not a bank. I am a daughter. And if they couldn't love the daughter without the bank, then they didn't deserve either. Ethan walked into the room. He looked sleepy and happy. His hair was messy. "Hey," he rasped, his voice rough with sleep. "You're up early." He came over and kissed the top of my head. He wrapped his arms around my shoulders, resting his chin on my head. "I'm watching the sunrise," I said. "It's beautiful," he said. "It is," I agreed. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." "Are you thinking about home?" he asked gently. He knew me so well. "No," I said, and I realized it was true. "I'm not thinking about home because this. Right here with you, inside my own skin. This is home." "Good," he said. "Because we have a busy day. I want to see the statue of David, and I want to eat pizza until I can't move." I laughed. It was a real laugh. It bubbled up from my stomach and spilled out into the room. "Pizza sounds perfect," I said. I looked at my phone sitting on the table. It was still on Do Not Disturb. I picked it up. I went into the settings. I looked at the blocked numbers list. Mom, Dad, Vanessa. I felt a phantom urge to unblock them, just to check. Just to see if they had sent an apology. Just to see if they had changed. But I knew they hadn't changed. People like that don't change just because you want them to. They only change when they have to, and even then, they usually just find a new victim. I put the phone down. I didn't change a thing. I realized that boundaries aren't a punishment for other people. They are a protection for yourself. I wasn't punishing them by not talking to them. I was protecting my peace. I was guarding my soul. I finished my coffee. I stood up and stretched. I felt strong. I wasn't the fixer anymore. I wasn't the invisible daughter. I wasn't the wallet. I was Ruby, just Ruby, and for the first time in my life, that was enough. We got dressed and walked out into the streets of Florence. The air was crisp. The city was waking up. Shopkeepers were sweeping the sidewalks. The smell of fresh bread wafted from the bakeries. We walked hand in hand. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. We walked past a phone booth. I saw a woman inside arguing with someone on the phone. She was crying. She looked stressed. She was pleading. "Please just listen to me," I heard her say. I stopped for a second. I felt a wave of empathy for her. I wanted to tell her, "Hang up. You don't have to do this. You can just hang up." But I knew she had to learn it for herself. You can't save people who aren't ready to be saved. I learned that the hard way. I squeezed Ethan's hand. Let's keep walking, I said. Where to? He asked. Anywhere, I said. Everywhere. We turned the corner, leaving the crying woman and the phone booth behind. We walked into the sunlight. The path ahead was open, it was wide, and best of all, it was mine. My parents were in their apartment, probably still angry, probably still stuck in their cycle of blame and entitlement. But I had stepped out of the circle. I had broken the line. The silence that followed wasn't lonely, it was rich, it was full. It was the sound of a life finally beginning. It was peace.